Jimmy Carter, and, of course, as we just mentioned, Albert Gore Jr. of Carthage, Tennessee, who wasn't even able to take office, who had his presidency eliminated the night of the election, the night of the 2000 election, through a massive electronic coup d'etat directed against the American people. Remember, folks, Gore still had 500,000 more votes than Bush fraud, even after all the votes they stole.
And it keeps coming back to part of that stolen election was done through Westart satellite systems that are part of the hidden, supposedly CIA's operation that Ollie North testified to during the Iran-Contra hearings as the company, quote unquote. And that's E-Systems, folks. And this is the sinister Bobby Inman.
Right. Bobby Inman is the one who directly ordered, who was in charge of that program with NASA. You know, you mentioned it tonight, so I might as well mention it. He's under a grand jury investigation, by the way, that is in the state of, is operating in the state of Tennessee. I don't want to get into it too much, but there's a lot of death threats involved. But he was in command and control of that, and you get the order was given to take 65,000 votes out of the state of Tennessee, but through their hacking of the voters' news services. And you know where they took it? You know where the Gore votes wound up in?
Where?
California. They can do this now, folks. They can move votes around from state to state with all their crap. They did. They moved at least 20,000 out of Missouri, another 15 to 18,000 out of West Virginia.
But the sinister Bobby Inman is always behind it, though. Well, I mean, there was in the past. This is Office of Naval Intelligence, but it's E-Systems. And E-Systems is tied to Florida's Hollywood Air Force Base, where Jeb Bush has a huge drug operation. E-Systems flies the drugs in there, folks. E-Systems is in Arlington, Texas, headquartered out of Arlington, Texas. Its former directors and payroll. Part of its payroll is Margaret Thatcher's son, Jeb Bush, George W., among others, were on the payroll before he became occupant of the White House. And Daddy Bush has gotten payroll checks out of the place. E-System is sinister. They're into trafficking of children, kidnapped children to these pedophiles worldwide. They're into all kinds of stuff.
I can tell you this, and I've never reported this before, but I might as well tonight, because I've been given the, let's just say we can report this now. It's important that we do. 2 days after the 2000 election. Now, Florida, of course, was the choice point software, which basically took the people off the voter rolls and classified them as convicted felons when they weren't. So when about 50 to 70,000 people went to vote in Florida that day, they were sent home with attack dogs and machine gun wielding Florida State Police telling them to get away from the polling place. But I can report to you tonight, 2 days after that national election, that fiasco, that coup d'etat of imaginable proportions, Al Gore told his attorneys, listen, I'm going to take this to the House floor. I'm going to have a news conference within 48 hours and explain this to the American people and basically demand that Bush be arrested. Clinton then told Gore that if he pursued this, that he would be assassinated. At which point Gore told Clinton, well, I'm not going to repeat it over the radio, but he basically, over this internet broadcast, but he basically told Clinton to shove it. The following night, Gore received threatening phone calls, including a phone call which stated to him that if he pursued this, that his daughter, who was dining at a restaurant at that time in Nashville, Tennessee, would not leave the restaurant alive. Now, you ask yourself that we're dealing with people. And remember,
we're dealing with nutcases that try to blackmail everybody, threaten to kill people and their children, and everything else.
you will know one of James Baker was part of this finance team of intimidators who harassed Gore's family. He was put in charge by Daddy Bush to go after Gore's family because they knew they couldn't intimidate Gore. Gore was not going to be intimidated by this homosexual in the closet, AWOL, cocaine-snorting, nation-wrecking, constitution-shredding misfit, punk and his sociopath daddy. So they went after his family. By the way, I can tell you tonight too, folks, that other people. This is part of their way of doing business. The Bush family. The thing to remember about that 2000 election, then we'll move on and close up the program, is that the derivative thing had first started rolling. The derivatives, the things, the financial instruments, they call them financial products, that bankrupted the United States
today.
At the time of that election, the derivative spread was 5-1. Gore had stated in the campaign that he would not, that these derivatives had to be monitored. He and Clinton got into a big to-do about that when Clinton and Gingrich shoved his derivative legislation originally through Congress along with his Phil Graham misfit from Texas, who was one of the biggest criminals ever to walk the face of the earth when it comes to enabling the financial destruction of the United States, he and his Chinese wife. Bush had promised people like Jack Welch of General Electric and these other major corporate wheelers and dealers 20-1 derivative spread. Well, folks, you cannot trade 20-1 leverage on something that ain't worth anything. And when the real estate market collapsed, the whole thing collapsed and brought our entire banking system down, and our entire banking system remains completely almost null and void. We have zombie banks across the United States. They can't loan money to people, but they can sure day trade bonds and Eurodollars thanks to the U.S. taxpayer. So you see the significance of why they had to steal that election, not only because they didn't want Gore having control of the Justice Department, and Gore could have had Clinton prosecute, but you also had the derivatives, the massive financial fraud that had first got started under the Clinton-Gingrich period during Clinton's impeachment. They shoved all this thing through with Gingrich the enabler and before he left office. And so again, you hear people, you even hear Bush overheard that night sitting there with his daddy. We have so much to lose if this thing doesn't work out right. Yeah, they had a lot to lose. Their plot to loot our treasury was at stake that night. Promise me, folks. I don't want to belabor Al Gore that much, but trust me, whether you like Gore or not, he would not have allowed the banking system in the United States and this country to be looted like this Bush family went into office and accomplished. And you remember Clinton sat there and let it and didn't say a word about it because he was too busy figuring out a way he was going to stick his lesbian wife into the presidency after Bush so they could continue looting the country. Well, that didn't work. But they got Obama in there, Barry Soetoro, this CIA foreign-born, that has been enabling this, who's been printing money like a drunken sailor on a daily basis. And believe me, folks, while most of this money that's being printed is just there to support the derivative scheme, the Ponzi scheme, and the other half of it is stolen and looted by the same people that looted the money before. Geithner, Greenspan, Bernanke. Yeah, I'm getting a little upset right now and giving you this information because it is unbelievable that this would be happening, but it is happening. Your country's been looted once, it's being looted again. And he's up there talking about health care when the whole banking system is collapsed and he's not doing a damn thing about it except putting Timothy Geithner in charge of it. He sat there with Stephen Freeman when the New York Federal Reserve Bank and watched this whole thing take place and knew there was a problem coming and didn't do a thing, and then enabled Bernard Madoff to launder money right through the same bank onto Israel where these criminals go over there and get their money back. Sorry, I lost my temper there, Stu.
No, go ahead, Tom. You're doing nothing but telling the truth. This guy's committing treason and sedition in the cover-up for the Bush-Clinton crime syndicate.
You see where they put that lesbian on
Obama.